Part 2. So, feedback. I've been dreaming a lot about deep water, and last night it was all about waters and boats, and I've just written it in my notes, so I'm just going to read it to you, and if it resonates, then let it land where it lands. So I was crossing a body of water in these boats, and then there's this, I was swimming in the water, and there was this baby in this donut, or like a floaty, and I went over to accompany her because I was like, it's very odd that there's this baby just randomly floating in the ocean by herself. And I pulled her under the water, and we both went under the water. And people were looking at me like I was drowning her, but I was like, no, I'm doing her a favor. I don't know, it was a feeling. And then there was this part where I was drowning in the underside of a boat, and I had to like struggle for air. Like there was like an inch of air, and I was like struggling to breathe. Then it flashed to another water scene where I was climbing off a boat, but I was walking on a pier that had been flooded, and the waters had risen, so the passengers were ankle deep, walking along it to the shoreland. Men in dark tunics and turbans carried our luggage and dragging bedding that was submerged and heavy. I decided that I was not above these men, and I began to help the man closest to me by carrying the bedding, which then caused me to be soaked and cold. It was a thankless task, but I helped him, and I felt that he was surprised, but he remained silent in his work. Then we arrived and walked underground through a damp tunnel that led us to a destination, but there was left luggage all around for people to rummage through and take whatever we wished. It felt like a smuggler's duty-free of sort, and my granddad was walking beside me. He's passed on recently. He was damp and his shirt ripped, and I sensed he was weary, but I embraced him and felt my ear against his chest. I felt his heart, and there was a sense of sadness, but deep love there. He squeezed my tricep and said, sorry, I'm a bit dirty, but I didn't care. I just felt into his hug and felt safe. Then we walked ahead, and my grandma was by my side, finding broken carry cases full of cosmetics. She beckoned me to crouch and scavenge through the products. I took an Estee Lauder turquoise and gold trim pump as it looked brand new, and then I saw a shelf of perfumes, and I reached out to take a violet liquid in a grenade-shaped glass bottle with a gold diffuser. As I did, a screen appeared behind the shelf, and it was broadcasting me on a live radio show hosted by 3 members. We had a natural, jovial conversation with the presenters, and then it trailed off with them saying my name as their guest, Rebecca Knight. Then we reached our destination, and only my grandfather was vaguely present. It was a dark, discombobulated version of my childhood home in Wales, the Farmhouse. Yet each room here was filled with junk, and it seemed so cluttered that it was triggering me. I had to find a place for everyone to sleep, and now I was aware that my daughter, my family members, old friends were all here. It was tricky to find a room unattended, and people were already sleeping in every room, and boxes full of gifts and wrapping paper and old photos and cushions were there. I found a place for my daughter, and then we hugged, and then I left to go and organise the mess. As I cleaned, I felt a sense of relief in my chest, a space to breathe in amongst the clutter, and as I moved, an envelope fell out and the items spilt on the floor at my feet. Old photographs of me and my family were recognised immediately, and handwritten pages signed off by my childhood best friend, Karen Ross Smith. I picked up the photos and saw myself with my brother Dave and my young parents. I was fashioning a vest with a bullseye motif, which was red, white and blue, and I remember this was one of my favourite t-shirts as a child. But I noticed also there were eyes all over the photographs. I had a marble eyeball in my mouth, and my brother did too. There were eye icons all over us, as if someone had drawn over the images in a black marker. I folded everything into the envelope, and then to read it later, at a later time, and carried on organising the clutter. Next, I found myself in a room which now resembled a children's paddling pool, and the teal water had a very eerie atmosphere that made me feel sick. I was wearing a blue dress, and I was fully soaked, and I sat in the water looking around, wondering why I was so afraid. Next, I was transported to a cartoon scenario where I saw God in the same blue tunic as me. His long, wavy, pure white beard fell over his shoulders, and he was busying himself next to me. I let out a burst of laughter at his appearance, and he smirked back at me and went, I know, right? And he giggled. This is how they depict me. Seeing God like this reminded me of ancient Greek mythology illustrations and cartoon versions of God and gods. I was pulled into another vision where I was a blonde goddess in a one-shoulder white tunic, gold sash and belt, and I was feasting on fruits and wine with other Greek figures of interest. I felt lavish and revered in my essence. I remember being her, I said. You've been many things, said God, but do you remember being the sea? The air shifted as the vision of a roaring ocean appeared to my left. I was transfixed. The fear rose up in my heart and I couldn't break my gaze, but God's voice continued behind me. You are the sea, my love. Look how beautiful and mesmerizing she is. People come to lap up the sound of her oceanic lullabies and be mesmerized by her salty waves, and yet she is a force to be messed with. She will pull you into the death and crush you, tearing you apart in the depths of her power and strength. You are her. I watched the vision standing on the edge of the sandy shoreline, a dark night. The moon hung full tomorrow above me. I watched the ocean as she pulled away and then crashed into millions of salty bubbles against the wet sand. The words of my familiar, comforting companion continued. Tell me, he inquired, is water afraid of herself? The question reached into my heart and gripped at a depth that I knew only too well. I stopped to contemplate this wise question and suddenly saw the places where fear existed in me, swimming in the depths of the water, uncertain of what lurked beneath, drowning in the water, spluttering and gasping for air to breathe. The image of dragging that baby under the water stung my eyes as I realized there was no malice in that act, and I felt I really was offering that child a gift. You are the water, he continued. You must become her, and then there is no fear. You must embody the consciousness of being. You are not separate to the water. That's where fear resides. How can water hurt itself? You must be the water. Then you can fully be what you are meant to be. Without fear, without identification, just pure consciousness and soul purpose in action. He continued, you are Aquarius. You are the water bearer. And my sheep know my voice, and you are also a great shepherd. Let go of fear and pour your waters all over the world, in all its forms. Mighty crashing waves that destroy rocks, gentle trickles that refresh, crisp and clear flowing rivers that cleanse, and pools of healing. You are not just a drop that you shape and name and identify under the microscope of your experience. You are not your family. You are not your stories. You are not the clutter of memories that you've collected and stored in dark, dusty rooms. You are wild and free. In Greek mythology, Aquarius made sure that the king's goblet was always full of wine. Pour yourself out, my love, and leave fear behind. Aquarius is represented by water, and you are a mystical healer who bestows the waters of life upon the land. And so in that, the essence is, don't think that you have to arrive or become something, because then there is a separation between you and that version of yourself. Be it. Then the fear disappears and disintegrates. It's as if you dissolve into the knowingness of who you are, rather than thinking it's something you have to aspire to or learn, or, the way we've been programmed. Your highest self, your highest purpose is not something you become. You already are it. And if you see yourself separate from that place, that desire, that version of you, then you fear it because you see that there's a gap and you don't know how to get there and you don't know what to do with it. Just know that you are it. You are the water. You are the earth. You are the fire. You are the wind. Bless you.